That was holy worldliness for him.
Ja. In German he said it, ich glaube, ich habe die tiefe Diesseitigkeit des Christentums begriffen. Die
Yes.
Diesseitigkeit is translated in English as worldliness, but that's not just that.
No. The fact that it makes a difference in this world rather than in the Jenseits, the far side.
Maybe it should be translated with a Christian cannot be entlassen aus der Verantwortung, cannot be dissolved, entlassen, freigesprochen, befreit werden, cannot be freed from the responsibility in the world.
Yes.
In giving the responsibility to others. That is not possible for a Christian.
There is no escape.
No escape.
From responsibility.
Yeah, escape. Yeah, that's the word.
The Christian is responsible for the things of the world.
Yeah, as far as he can.
Mm-hmm.
As far as he can. And there we come to that old French proverb, noblesse oblige.
Mm-hmm.
You see, that's the reason why the noblesse has lost his gesellschaftlichen Wert, his
value to society.
Yeah, value to society. They wanted to have the nobility without the obligo.
Yes.
That's lost.
Yes. And so they have been put out from privilege.
Yeah. Who is privileged in any way, maybe by birth or by culture or by money or whatever, who is privileged has the responding responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Die entsprechende Verantwortlichkeit.
Corresponding to this privilege.
Yeah.
You must use your privilege for a purpose.
Yeah.
Was Klaus close to Dietrich?
Very much. Very much.
I think of the two of them at the end of 1924 in Tübingen, taking off to Rome together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm copying the letters which they wrote from that time, Dietrich and Klaus. And there was among the letters from Klaus, which I have copied, there was one from Dietrich also. I gave it to Eberhard.
I think that was a very enjoyable time, and a time maybe when Dietrich was a little influenced by Klaus. They went a little farther than Italy and didn't always honestly report their whereabouts on that journey. Do you recall that? Going to North Africa was something that they decided once they got to Rome they would do.
Yeah.
And they crossed to Tripoli and had to get more money from home. And I think mentioned that they had lost some money or something to that effect. Is that correct or not?
Maybe.
You've just been over those letters, not
maybe. Anyhow, there are letters that they report at home where they are, and they have done all securities. It was more not so much the money. The sorrow was that the parents would not agree that they do such dangerous travels.
Yes.
They were dangerous at that time, and so they send a postcard every day where they are, and so.
Concerned.
I don't know if the money played such a role. I don't know.
But one has the feeling they were, in a way, sort of soul brothers on this occasion. They were
soul brothers
together, seelisch zusammen, yeah.
Yeah.
In their different personalities.
Yeah.
They did have different personalities.
Yeah. Yeah, Klaus war mehr der aktivere, more dynamic personality.
Yes.
And Dietrich was more contemplative temperament.
Reserved a little.
Yeah, very much self-controlled very scrupulous, yeah.
Yes.
Scrupulous.
Careful.
Yeah. So or so or so or so.
Mhm.
That was more right away. And both were very, very good Schlittschuhläufer, skating.
Mhm. Skiers. Skaters.
Nein, nicht, yeah, skiers also, but on the ice.
Skaters, yes.
Skaters, yeah.
Good, yes.
Both very good.
Athletic.
Excellent.
Sport.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
And dancing on the ice.
Mm.
Very elegant.
Mm.
Though Klaus was not a very elegant figure. He was smaller than I was, some centimeters. He was very strong, very
Mm.
musculous, and he could mich mit dem Stuhl hochheben.
Oh yes, lift up a chair with one hand. Yes. One has the feeling that somewhere Dietrich, when he first announced that he would become a pastor, almost shocked Klaus and the other older brothers.
Karl Friedrich, yeah.
Karl Friedrich and so forth. Yeah.
Ja, ja.
Then
Du wirst nur alte Frauen werden nur in deiner Kirche sitzen. Die Kirche ist doch so kleinbürgerlich geworden.
Yes.
Dann werde ich die Kirche reformieren, sagt er. Then I'll reform the church.
you know, just change it, free it from this tie to the petty bourgeois way. Then Karl Friedrich and his father were rather quickly, however, in the Hitler time, surprised, as many people, I suppose, in Germany were surprised by the sudden awakening of the church in the Kirchenkampf. The church became a little more active than people thought in the 30s during the Hitler time.
Maybe.
In some respects, some would claim it was a place where people who were more politically inclined found their only opportunity to support an open revolt or resistance.
Yes, it's true. There was a time that suddenly everybody will run to the church services, which was not before.
Yes.
Yeah, it was the feeling here. Here you are among people who feel like you and who risk something. And I remember once we came out of a church service and we were singing in the street loud, choirs. And the policy which had forbidden that service said to me, "Geh doch zu Hause beten. You can pray at home, you must not be in the church," and so. This was very characteristic because the policeman sympathized.
Yes.
Sympathized? Yeah.
Sympathized.
Sympathized.
He didn't just put you in the under arrest.
Yeah. And they tried to make einen Vorschlag for a compromise. Yeah. Geh doch zu Hause beten.
He didn't want to make the choice.
Yeah.
So, at the end, however, as we said a little earlier, at the end, when the resistance came to 1944 and 1945, it had become, in a curious way, a community of people who saw their political involvement as perhaps forcing them back to assess the fundamental beliefs which they held to be so important as to demand this kind of activity, no matter what.
Yeah, the importance of the message of the church became alive in those days. It was a Kant recognized as als ein klarer Orientierungspunkt, as a point of orientation. Yeah. And suddenly the church won in importance for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think that's always when in critical times today the same. Suddenly the breach of the mountain is discussed in the newspapers, and so when it comes in the development and Entwicklung, and the development to existential problems, Probleme der Existenz,
yes,
yeah?
Actual conditions and circumstances.
Actual conditions. Then one looks for orientation in the very old Weisungen der Bibel. Also, the Hebrew Bible is always translated by Lapide, for instance, for example, als das Buch der Weisungen. Und Weisungen is etwas, I can't translate it. It shows you the direction you have to go. Yeah. And this is for many people today again very actual in the problems of the atomic war which stands before, and the intellectual and political thoughts, Überlegungen, Meinungen. They say, well, if you do that, then you work for the Russians, and so these are all political calculs, yeah?
Calculations.
Calculations. And then you feel, if you ask really the basic Weisungen, there's no choice. There's no choice. You have better to risk to be burned by an atomic bomb than to get guilty to murder millions of innocent people in Russia, which suffer just as we suffered under Hitler, so they suffer under the Kremlin. Why kill them by millions? But of course that is a personal decision, and I'm not sure if a politician may think so. But the pressure from the broad masses who feel like I described first, maybe they push the politicians on both sides to get nearer to this point of view and to give up the practically the questions of power, of political power. It is more and more the development goes to fight of power, of world power on both sides. And as stronger the pressure from the people, from the broad masses come that these times are past to think that way. Maybe they find a way to get out of the gap in which we are fallen.
For Klaus, was the Hebrew tradition a part of that culture, that whatever that he drew upon.
You know, I would say so. He was so der Geist der Bibel ist, also die Bibel, ich muss das so ausdrücken. Ein Potsdamer Bischof hat jetzt einen Artikel geschrieben, wrote an article about policy and religion, yeah? And he says, and that is just how my husband felt, the preach of the Mount cannot be directly used for political decisions, but ihre Wirkung ist metapolitisch. This is a word which he had created. It doesn't exist.
Yes, right.
But it is analog to metaphysisch.
Yes.
Metaphysik, yeah? That means a politician and politiker, yeah? A politician, is that
yes.
A politician who is filled with the spirit of the preach of the Mount, of the basic religious meanings, feelings, wisdom, würde ich sagen, the wisdom of the Hebrew Bible, who is penetrated, durchdrungen, yeah, penetrated and filled with that spirit. He will act in the way as if he is a true service attender. Yeah? Klaus chose as a word for the baptism, the Taufe.
Yes.
Baptism of our youngest son, Balthar. He took the word, I think it's by Paulus, ihr seid teuer erkauft, werdet nicht der Menschen Knechte. How's that in English?
You are very...
Teuer erkauft.
You are bought with a high price.
Yeah. Don't become slaves of men.
Exactly. And
this is absolutely a Bible feeling, yeah. Though he never went to, very seldom went to a church. From the very early youth, the mother taught them. She gave her children the religious lessons. The elder children had all lessons from her the first 3 years, and the younger children still had religious lessons from her. And so very early they learned the spirit of the Bible. The spirit is it, yeah?
And the direction, as Lapida would say.
Yeah. The direction.
There are certain basic pointers, signposts, that...
No, the church life in the family was beschränkt auf Christmas. The mother read aloud the story of the birth of Jesus. I think there was not even a prayer at the dinner. Maybe in earlier days it was, but when the children were adult, there was never. That was not because they didn't feel it necessary any longer, but they felt the spirit of the thing is important, not the words.
Yes. You could feel the closeness of that, whatever. The German Christians were full of piety. But they were easily deceived into supporting Hitler without any limit.
They put pictures of Hitler on the altar between candles, and felt he is a God-sent man.
Mm-hmm. This was the petty bourgeois church.
Yeah.
The church that had become middle class, lower middle class, the little bürgerlich, kleine bürgerlich outlook, nation, strength, employment, good business, all are the meaning of Christian faith.
Well, this is Calvin.
Oh, yes.
God's benefit on the successful men.
I promised earlier a little story about Paul Lehmann, the American professor who spoke with Franz Hildebrandt and with Wolf-Dieter Zimmermann and with Heinrich Vogel and with Eberhard and some others, Bertolt Kloppert from Wuppertal, Gerlach, the journalist, pastor now. And Lehmann rather, I think, stole the show, so to speak, with a reference which I think was very appropriate to how the church, in a way, stumbled into the role of resisting politically. He referred to the characters from some plays of William Shakespeare, Rosenkranz und Guildenstern,
Rosenkranz und Guildenstern,
who were sent as representatives, an embassy, to the king with a message that when the king receives Rosenkranz and Guildenstern, they must be killed. They carried their own death warrant with them. And of course they go through all kinds of trouble, but still do everything they can to succeed in carrying the message. And finally, they say to each other, there must have been a time, a moment, when we could have stopped and said, no, we will not go any further from here. But when was that time? And Paul Lehmann says, the church which confessed, and I think it would be equally true for the resistors who resisted, were kind of like Rosenkranz and Guildenstern. They were trying to go on, not knowing what they would get to when they got there, and looking back even, they would say, when was it that we made the decisive step? We don't remember. There must have been a time when we could have said, we go on or we stop. But I suspect for Klaus, it was every day a little choice.